As our family began 2015, we had a foster daughter that we were in the process of adopting, and there wasn't anything in our minds or our sights on fostering another child, and certainly not a teenager. As we began 2016, Rue had joined our family as a foster placement, and we were in the process of getting ready to adopt him, and there wasn't anything in our mind about sharing our story and the process that we went through. But today we'd like to give you just a small peek into the process and how Rue became a member of our family. So with that, I'll introduce you to my son, Rulon Daniel Hamilton.
Hey. Tonight, I would like to share some of my story of how I became a Hamilton. I was born into this FLDS community in July of '99. My biological father was kicked out when I was 5, so I never really knew much of him. After that, my biological mother, along with my 15 siblings, were all reassigned to this guy named Merrill Jessup. Merrill had about 20 wives at the time, and I think he still does. In 2008, I was taken into state custody for the first time in Texas, and I was kept from my siblings and my biological mother for about 2 months. When they finally returned us, then we traveled around a lot and we didn't really stay in one place. When I was 12, I was caught spinning donuts on a four-wheeler, so my punishment for that was that I didn't receive the priesthood that they gave to 12-year-olds, and shortly after, I was sent away with one of my sisters. I stopped attending school when I was 13, and I started working manual labor jobs. I never got a dime for the work I did, and as far as I know, it all went down to the leaders of the community. While we were working in this repentance home up in Idaho that they sent us to, we traveled around a lot, and I didn't really have a home for about 2 years. When I was 14, me and this other boy contacted Holding Out Help, and we were gonna hitchhike a ride with these truckers and have them give us a ride down here to Salt Lake, but Tanya told us to go back and told us that it was not safe, so we went back disappointed. But on my 15th birthday, the FBI and a bunch of officials came in and raided the house we were living in. They took us all into state custody that was my second time. I wanted to leave at that time too, and I was gonna get the state of Idaho to see if they could help me out, but my biological mother convinced me to stay and told me that I could go help my brother Toss, who I always really looked up to. I never really knew him that much, but I just always thought he was really cool, so I decided that I was gonna stay and go work with him. When I first started to work for him, then I thought it was really cool, and then it just got to where he didn't like me around. Nobody really liked me around, and they left me all out of all the fun, and like everything they went to go do is always I had to stay, and so I decided to leave again. I got in contact with Holding Out Help again, and this time it worked barely, and I was able to get out. When I came out, Holding Out Help found me a temporary home, and I was staying in it for a while. While I was staying in that home, I made a big mistake and let my biological mother come and see me, and I let her come to the house that we were living in, and when she left, then she called and reported me in as a missing person. So the cops showed up there. They since I refused to go back with her, they had to take me into DT, so they handcuffed me in these pink handcuffs, and I was taken into juvenile detention. While I was there, having visitors was good yet bad. I was forced through this process that I don't like to talk about, so don't ask me. Later, I met with my judge, and he placed me in a group home with these other boys, and after a few more court dates and figuring things out, he placed me with the Hamiltons.
Our family, my husband and I decided to go to breakfast for Valentine's Day, and while we were having breakfast with each other, I got a phone call and text messages and Facebook messages and from some people that we went to church with, and they indicated that there was a boy who needed a temporary home and needed a temporary home with someone who was foster care certified. So my immediate reaction, we were in the process of going through the termination of parental rights for our daughter, and so my immediate reaction was, no thank you. My husband, however, really felt that it was important that we at least go and meet this boy. And so we agreed. We spoke with Tanya from Holding Out Help on the phone. We spoke with Rulon on the phone. And the next day, after we sat down and talked with our kids, and all of them agreed to go and to meet this boy, we all went and met him in the group home. Almost immediately, I think the entire family just fell in love with him. Within a 20-minute meeting with him, we met with him and another boy who had left the community, as well as Tanya. It was just this very easy conversation, and it was just evident to us that we were supposed to take him if that was something that the courts would let us do. And so I recall even talking to Tanya before I left and said, you know, if he needs a home a little bit longer than a few months, we might be willing to look at that. So we started the process. My husband and I talked to our caseworker and to our RFC and all of these people involved in the foster care system to make sure we could get approved to take a second placement, especially a teenage boy where we had this young girl in our home that we hadn't finished the process with yet, and we got all of the approvals that we needed. And so on February 17th, I went to court and was able to sit through the process because I'm a licensed foster provider. And as I showed up for court, it was amazing because the entire care team for Rulon was the exact same care team that we had been dealing with for almost a year with our foster daughter. And so they were very familiar with us. They knew who we were. And I knew the judge well enough that as I sat there through the entire court process, I was absolutely certain that he was going to have to send Rulon back to Arizona. And I prayed, and I prayed probably harder than I have in my entire life. I think my knuckles were white the entire time, just praying that there would be some way that this boy could stay. And at the end of the hearing, the judge found just the tiniest little loophole because Rulon's most current residence was Utah, and because he was born in Utah, they were able to keep him here until residency could be established. And so out of character for these type of proceedings, the judge actually assigned my family as the foster providers for Rulon. Typically that goes through an entirely different process, but he actually placed him with us that very day. So later that afternoon, I went and I picked my other kids up from school, and then we went over and picked Rulon up from the group home.
So when I first left, I was angry. I was mad that I had to go through juvenile detention. I was mad at God. I felt like he had failed me. But the more I learned about what a normal life out here was and what went on down in that community, it made me more angry. You know, I wanted to go down there and find people. I really, I was, I was angry that I'd missed out on so much. I still struggle with that from time to time, but it's not as bad as it used to be. Schoolwork for me has been difficult. When I first came out, it was really hard, because I was not a very social person, and so, school was hard, and, socializing was hard, and I quit school back in 7th grade, so I'd never really done school, and they put me in 9th grade. So I had to learn how to go through that. I had to adjust to having freedom and to having a normal life. But I also have people who take care of me and help me. I have to learn how to speak my mind or not speak my mind, and that it was okay to think differently than everybody else. Everybody has different opinions, and they're all allowed to think whatever they want to think and do what they want to do without being deemed unworthy or kicked out or sent away to repent. And as I learned more of the truth of what went on down there in that community, I was really worried about my sister. I was really close with her, and I was just worried about what they were going to do, because I had heard about what they did with teenage girls and women down there, and I was really scared for her. But it got better. She finally came out, and I was really happy to see her, and things got better.
My husband and I, as we entered into the foster care journey, one of the things that was really important to us was to make sure that we knew how to parent children that had these traumas and things that had happened to them. And so we engaged in a parenting class and training called Empowered to Connect. And as we brought our foster daughter into our home, it made a huge difference in how we interacted with her and in her being able to feel secure and attached as she was in our home. And it really helped a lot as well when Rulon came into our home, because here we had this child who was so angry and didn't know how to express that anger, didn't know that it was okay to express that anger. The first few weeks that he was in our home, it was probably every night we were up until midnight, and he would just pour out these stories of things that he had been to and really just sharing his life with us and everything that we had missed. We eventually got to the point where we realized that he needed some sort of outlet, and so we purchased a punching bag, and that became his place of refuge. Times where he would get frustrated and just couldn't handle the changes and the upset over things that had happened to him, we would find him out just wailing away on the punching bag, and so that became definitely a spot for him. It was unusual as well, though, to have to teach a child that it's okay to make mistakes and that we were going to love him regardless of the mistakes that were made. The love that we have for him is unconditional, that he doesn't have to be good enough, that he's allowed to have a voice, he's allowed to have opinions and to express those in a respectful way. And so those were all very unique things that we had to learn as we brought this child into our home. But we also had to learn to really embrace just kind of the craziness of the journey that God was taking us on. as we went through the court process and the difficulties and the road bumps that we hit, and just really to trust him in that entire journey.
So it's now been over a year since I have came out of that place, and my life has completely turned. I'm so much different in every way. I somewhat enjoy school, and I am doing pretty good socially. I was able to complete my 9th grade year in 4 months with my mom's help, and I am now in 10th grade with an A average. So I think I'm doing pretty good. But I realize that not everything revolves around one man and one belief system. People are allowed to think and do what they want to do, and they don't have to be punished for it. I now have the freedom to make my own choices, to have my own thoughts and opinions, and I have a choice in what I want to do with my life. I now have a family who loves and cares about me, and they work with me through hard things that I go through, and we go do fun things together as a family. We go to the movies, and we go on vacation, and we just go have fun together as a family. I realize I have a choice in my future and what I want to do with my life, where I go to college, who I date and marry, where I get a job, and where I graduate. For right now, I'm going to go to the University of Utah to study, be a veterinarian, because I like animals a lot. I do know that I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Holding Out Help. When I first left, I had nothing, and they fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. They found me a home, and I just can't thank them enough for what they've done. I just know that I wouldn't be at Hamilton today if it wasn't for Holding Out Help.
So we are eternally grateful for the help and support that we've received from Holding Out Help. We know that any time that we have a question or an issue that arises, that we've got one phone call and we're able to get the help and support that we need to be able to parent Rulon, because he does come from a very different background than most foster children, and certainly from our other children. And so it's been imperative to have that help and support. But the cost of bringing a child like this into your home is anything but free. When Rue came into our home, he didn't have really anything. He had a couple of outfits, and so he needed clothing, he needed socks and shoes, he needed supplies to be able to go to school, a bus pass, just pretty much everything that you look around your house and you have, he had none of that. And so there was an extensive cost of getting everything taken care of, and then there were extra legal fees because of the community he comes from and the steps in the process that we had to take as his foster parents. And I can't imagine going through something like this without having that backing and support of an organization who has the well-being and the heart for these kids who find themselves brave enough to really step outside of everything that they've known their whole life and to find freedom. So I really, if as we've been sharing our story, if there's any sort of yearning in your heart to help somehow, there are amazing opportunities to become a host home and to bring children into your home in this way. It's amazing and life-changing in the very best of ways. There's also the ability to provide financial support to Holding Out Help to help families who are bringing these kids into your home. So any way that you feel led to help, we would definitely encourage you to do that. And we appreciate you listening to our story.